SpaceX founder Elon Musk has switched off his Starlink satellite internet dishes for Ukraine's drones. Ukraine's military success so far has hung on a lot of things that are outside of its control. Western aid, particularly American military aid, an army of crowdfunders outside of Ukraine, and an unpredictable business mogul who once upon a time was the world's richest man. Now Elon Musk founded SpaceX, which has sent more than 5,000 Starlink satellite internet dishes into Ukraine, is saying that he's going to limit the use of the internet portal. That is because Starlink has deemed that its internet-powered drones are being used for offensive military operations. SpaceX is alleging that Ukrainian troops have used the Starlink portals to try and control drones that attack Russian forces. It was never meant to be weaponized, but the Ukrainians have leveraged it in ways that were unintentional and not part of any agreement. That is what SpaceX President Gwynne Shotwell said at the Federal Aviation Administration conference in Washington last week. She also went on to say that we know that the military is using them for comms, and that's okay, but our intent was never to have them be used for offensive purposes. Now, this latest episode highlights the love-hate relationship between Elon Musk and the Ukrainian people. From being called a Putin stooge, he's also been hailed by some in Ukraine for providing the Starlink internet-based support in Ukraine's counterattack. On CRUX Decode, we try to unravel this complex relationship between the man who used to be the world's richest very recently and a country that has been besieged by war for the better part of the last 1 year. Portable internet hubs have been a game changer for Ukraine's military. It keeps the units out in the field connected, despite the devastation that's been caused to Ukraine's electricity and internet infrastructure. In November 2022, CNN reported that 1,300 of Ukraine's Starlink satellite dishes had temporarily gone off. This happened coincidentally just 2 months after SpaceX sent a letter to the US Department of Defense saying that it could no longer fund Starlink in Ukraine. It had already spent nearly $100 million in making the internet available in Ukraine. But that's not where it started going terribly wrong for Elon Musk. Musk outraged top Ukrainian officials, including President Vladimir Zelensky, in October by tweeting out a self-initiated peace plan. Now, interestingly, this plan very much mirrored a lot of Moscow's talking points. This was his idea on how to end Russia's full-scale invasion. Basically, his plan was to allow the Kremlin to keep control of the Crimean Peninsula, which it had illegally annexed from Ukraine in 2014. In that Twitter thread, Musk suggested that Ukraine should recognize Crimea as Russian because a majority there are Russian speakers. In response, the Ukrainian ambassador to Germany, Andrij Melnik, told Musk to F off. Following that tweet, Musk had reportedly discussed this matter both with Ukrainian government officials as well as US government officials in a bid to try and determine the exact locations where Starlink can be installed. Now, while the US government has not committed any funds to this project, SpaceX has continued to fund the project on a monthly basis. Despite the controversy, Musk has remained adamant that Starlink could be a great benefit for Ukraine, claiming that it could provide internet access to 85% of the country by 2023. Now, Elon Musk's relationship with Russian President Vladimir Putin since the beginning of this war has been the subject of a lot of speculation. Although Musk has denied that he ever spoke directly with Putin about the war, he did confirm that he had discussed space with the Russian president. But now, Fiona Hill, who was formerly an advisor to the former US President Donald Trump, gave a testimony at the US Congress suggesting that Musk is transmitting a message from Putin. Anyway, that wasn't the first time that Musk had suggested that Crimea be recognized as Russian. He went on to say earlier, again in a Twitter thread, because Ukraine's been winning, the country should negotiate peace. This is what he said, and I quote, "In my view, the nature of this peace would be recognizing Crimea as Russian, allowing Luhansk and Donetsk to be independent quasi-republics, and don't block the water to Crimea like Ukraine did the last time. Russia would accept those terms," unquote. Now, Crimea is a dry peninsula, so the concern around water is so specific in Musk's tweets that it clearly seems to be like a message from Putin. In response, Mikhailo Podolyak, an advisor to Vladimir Zelensky, tweeted that Musk will have to decide whether he was standing with Ukraine's right to freedom or Russia's will to try and illegally seize sovereign territory of another country. At the same time, Russian Telegram channels appear to light up with glee over the news of Starlink going off over Ukraine. Ukraine has adapted its drones over the course of this war to do everything from targeting artillery strikes to conducting long-range kamikaze attacks. If we gauge how important any given technology is to the Ukrainians based on how it's being discussed across Russian Telegram channels, then you would have to say that this message was rather important. Now, the drones were being used to relay real-time information back to the Ukrainian forces, as well as to gather intelligence on the enemy's movements. Most importantly, these drones were also being used to gather evidence that can be used in legal proceedings. Now, this would basically allow the Ukrainian government to document any violations of international law and bring those responsible to justice. The drones were also used to provide communication links between the Ukrainian forces and their allies, thereby allowing for greater coordination. Further, the drones were also being used to provide medical and humanitarian assistance to those who were affected by the conflict. But it's not just on the Ukrainian side. Russia, too, has been accused of using Iranian-made drones in repeated attacks on Ukraine's civilian population. These drones have been re-engineered to be difficult to shoot down. They're used to cause damage to physical infrastructure as well as civilian casualties. Ukraine is attempting to combat the Russian drones or the Iranian-made drones that are being used by Russia by using a combination of small arms fire, heavy machine guns, portable anti-air missiles, and electronic jammers. The drone technology has become such a major part of this war and a major part of Russia's arsenal against Ukraine, as they're able to conduct both reconnaissance as well as hit strikes. Coming back to Musk, from Rockefeller to Buffett to Koch brothers, there have been times when some of the world's rich and elite have tried their hand at geopolitics. Now, generally, this happens much more locally in trying to get tax breaks or political donations or backing certain election candidates. When a business person gets involved in politics, it's not about moral righteousness or trying to make a difference. It is about the bottom line, because money is how the powerful keep score.